Hello, welcome to Outdoor Exploration. I'm Emily. Today I'm going to look at the pond at my house and hopefully another pond as well. We'll have a look what's growing here. I'm doing this today especially for my friend Mavis, who's doing a project about frogs right now, and I hope we'll find some, but no guarantees. First I thought I'd talk about some of the many plants that are growing here at the moment. Well, especially the ones that are coming up right now, which include this lady fern over here. There's another one over there. A bunch of small horsetails. Sometimes you get the giant horsetails too. This is salmonberry. Salmonberries are coming up all around our pond here, and this is a little spring. It does stay mostly having water in it during the summer, but we get rid of the salmonberries because they're quite invasive here, but they're shooting up, so I'm going to show you how to harvest them. You pull up until it snaps off, kind of bending it until at a certain point it snaps. These are salmonberry shoots. So I've talked before about the salmonberry blossoms. You can also eat the salmonberries, obviously, in the summer, but the shoots, when they're first starting, are very fleshy and tasty and quite a nice snack. So what you do is you have this this shoot that you've pulled here. It's kind of, you harvest it the same way you harvest asparagus. You slowly pull up from the bottom, and they are prickly, so some people like to wear gloves. It doesn't bother me too much because they're a little soft, these prickles. And then you just peel it. So I've talked before about oxalic acid that makes fresh spring greens and spinach quite astringent and feeling kind of dry and sour or bitter in your mouth. Salmonberry shoots have a lot of that, and you'll taste it. It's not going to hurt you, but that's what makes it feel like it's sucking all the water out of your mouth. So this is the part you want. You can eat it fresh or you can saute them. I personally think that the red-skinned ones are sweeter than the green ones. That's my personal opinion. I don't know why. But back to the pond. Let's talk about some of the things that are in the pond. On this pond, and probably almost every pond in our area right now, there's a lot of pollen. You might have seen the massive clouds of pollen flying everywhere. Well, it settles on the water, and the lily leaves there are all covered in pollen also. So as you look into the surface of the water, you're always looking past the pollen. The water skeeters and those tiny little black beetles that we call water riders they kind of have to weave their way between the pollen. I think it probably bothers them. Who knows? But one of the most exciting things at this time of year are the frog eggs. Now, in some ponds right now, they're still kind of large, roundish blobs of eggs under the surface. Frog eggs are little gelatinous balls. Each of them has a little tadpole growing in them, or in it. But as they start hatching, the little gelatinous balls, the eggs, break apart and they come up and float on the surface. And in our spring here, we have three clumps of frog eggs, and I think they're all hatched. There's one back there, another one, kind of a smaller one at the front of this lily, and one over here at the edge that I'm going to take a closer look at. So I see already some tadpoles poking around at the surface, but I'm going to see if I can show you those. All right, let's have a look. A moment ago I saw one. I don't want to disturb it too much because, oh, there's one. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little tadpole resting on top. Oh, there are two actually. Oh, there goes one. I'm kind of bumping them from the bottom, see if they'll have a little swim. I don't want to bother them too much, but whoop, there goes one. So right now they just kind of hang around in their egg mass. And you can see the spawn has become full of algae. It starts off clear, and by now it's all green. And in fact, I see very few tadpoles, so almost all of them have hatched, and they're swimming around in here somewhere. So here we are at the runoff from the spring at my house. And there are a few different plants here. This is kind of a little swamp in the summer. Right now it's full of eggs. Right now it's full of cattails, I mean. The old stalks from last year. But there are new ones coming up. And I thought I'd mention also there's a dock plant. And this is a trailing bramble. But here is the new cattail shoot. There are a few in between there, but generally it's very, very early season for these. Cattail shoots are delicious, and let me show you how to pick them. You basically reach down, and you see I see a second one there, and two outer leaves here, and an inner leaf. Now they're all so new I can probably pull up the whole thing. But if they were bigger than this, I might only take the inner leaves, because what you want is the bottom of the new young stalks. So what I'm going to do is just reach down and very carefully pull, and let's see if it breaks off for me. I hope it does. There it comes. So this is your tasty vegetable. Now, we have some beaver activity in this area, so while I don't think the beavers come up this close to my house, I am not going to just eat this raw. But if you have a spring that you know, or a pond, a marsh, that you know for sure no beavers ever visit, it's probably okay to eat them raw. I used to eat these raw before we had beavers here. Otherwise, you can saute them. The reason we don't eat food from beaver ponds, by the way, is giardia. You do not want beaver fever. It's far worse than just a fever. It goes on for a long time and affects your stomach. But let me show you this. Each leaf is actually wrapped around the rest of the leaves. So if you see, this is the outer leaf from the bunch that I pulled. And if I push my finger along there, it'll separate off, and it is wrapped around like this. So that's one leaf there. Whoops, I'm breaking it a bit. And actually, if you look very closely, you can see each individual cell in the leaf. They're so gorgeous to me. And then, of course, when you eat it, you get this sort of series of rings, a bit like a leek. And you can just chop them up and saute them, or eat them raw if you trust your source. So I have come over to my neighbor's pond because they have a clump of frog eggs down here that is less developed than those in my pond. So if you look really closely, you'll be able to see little tiny black dots, and those are basically the embryonic tadpoles all curled up inside their little eggs. A while ago they would have been even tinier, less black looking dots, and that was just an earlier stage of development. So depending where you go and kind of the conditions of the pond you're looking at, you may find frog eggs in different stages. These you can see that they're sitting under the surface of the water, and they're sort of a lumpy clump. Those are how they look before they hatch, and as they start hatching, the tadpoles coming out break apart the eggs, and then you'll see them kind of floating and spreading out on the surface of the water. Now, another kind of eggs that you can find quite often in ponds around here, and quite often I find they're in different ponds than the frog eggs, are salamander eggs. They look kind of similar, except that where the frog eggs are kind of lumpy all around and transparent, the salamander eggs are a little more opaque, and they generally look like a sort of smooth oval clump. So the sides are smoother instead of lumpy. You don't see each individual egg as much. It's just one solid jelly mass. And other than that, they're quite similar. Salamander eggs are often on lily stems or other kind of plants that are down low. And yeah, you may find those. Salamander eggs also seem to take a lot longer to hatch than frog eggs do. And just to be clear, these are red-legged frog eggs. So the chorus frogs that we have here, which are quite often what you hear in the evening when you hear the chorus of frogs, you know, I can't even do it, but whatever that sound is, those are the little tiny green frogs, and those actually have smaller egg clutches that they're different. You find them, I think they're in more running water than these red-legged ones. I'm not actually sure about that, but these big clumps that you find are the red-legged clumps. And red-legged frogs you would find, well, quite often by the edges of ponds. If we walk along, sometimes they'll hop in and you'll see them kind of plunge in and then reappear somewhere. But also in the forest. And the chorus frogs, Pacific chorus frogs, they would be in our gardens most often. Weirdly, I find them on my windowsills a lot in the summer. My mother seems to find them in her roses every year, but not very often on the forest floor. Red-legged frogs, for some reason, like to be in the shady forest. I mean, like the coniferous forest, under the cedar trees. Sometimes in old stumps you'll find them sitting around. So, this is the end of today's video, and I'm just thinking what a lovely, lovely resource water is. Not just because of all the wonderful things that are in it, which I've hardly seen 1% of maybe today, or far less, but just water itself to look at, how it beautifully reflects. It just feels so nice. So, I don't know. I feel like this was a nice place to come today. Things are feeling a little stressful in the news lately, and I hope you have time to get out, explore, and find some exciting things to discover. See you next time.